just for the board to get an update of an assessment report that I requested from the State Department of Transportation. I would say that Director Kendall was very gracious in allowing us to borrow Mr. Bowman for a time here, that he put a lot of valuable time in on this project. We appreciate your time. If we could just pause for a moment, is there any call-ins is anybody calling in?
Alderman Debo said that he asked for the call-in information again, but he's not on the call yet. So I expect him to join, but he's not on yet.
Can we just pause for a moment, please? If you would, as we pause, just got word a few minutes ago that one of my friends' father, who's also a friend, have been placed in hospice. And I ask that you think of them. This is Mr. May. Mr. May was one of our planning commissioners for a long time here in Moss Point. His daughter is here today, and she made me aware. And I want you to think of Mr. May because he's been a great service to this community for many, many years. He and his wife and his whole family. So please think of him, his wife, and his children from this time. There you go, 18. Thank you. Roll call.
Alderman Chapman, Alderman Bradford, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Dubose,
Present.
Alderman Castro,
Present.
Alderman Chastain,
Here.
Alderman Leonard.
Here.
Yeah, we have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you. We have a quorum, and so we're going to ask Executive Director Bowman, Joshua Bowman, who has been working with us for this project. And again, thank you so much. We're going to ask him to come and make his presentation to the board.
Sir. Well, thank you for the opportunity, and all of you have a copy of the assessment, correct? Okay. So I was asked by Commissioner Tyndall to come to the city of Moss Point and provide this assessment after meeting with Mayor Knight. There was 4 key operational areas that were identified that he wanted us to review. Those areas were investigative case files, evidence management, the command structure, and fiscal accountability. I came here on September 29th and 30th, spent both days here. After those on-site days, there was a series of phone calls, a series of other interviews via the phone and Teams, and that element there. Things that were reviewed were department policies, workload data, case files, staffing information, as well as in-person and online interviews. I will tell you the police department as a whole demonstrates a foundation of professional practices. There's significant modernization and organizational restructure that are going to be needed, as well as focus on accountability and public confidence. So if you guys look on page 2, bullet number 1, investigative files, you will see overall the Moss Point Police Department, the case documentation is consistent with professional investigative standards. Reports demonstrate structure, adherence to established templates, and appropriate evidence tracking. However, supervisor and line level duties were mixed, which limited the manager's ability to mentor and interact with the detectives on an efficient manner. This workload hindered their ability to provide oversight and consistent supervision across the criminal investigation division. So what are the findings for the new chief? Is immediately they need to establish CID operations through a structured rebuilding process. There needs to be a complete audit of all active cases, identifying any missing or potentially missing evidence, overdue reports, and cases that require immediate reassignment. The duties must be restructured to provide a clear criminal investigations division supervisor, defining caseload expectations, and there must be a balance of the investigation assignment. Page 3, evidence operations. This is the department's highest risk area at this point in time. The policies have not been revisited since 2013. There appears to be inadequate physical security and minimal oversight. No formal audit has been conducted since 2022 or prior to 2022. And there appears to be more than 1,500 firearms that need to be processed and remain in a backlog dating back to almost 2001. Additionally, there is some sizing issues when it comes to the actual size of the evidence room based on current caseload, based on current statutes in regards to how long you must keep certain evidence. It looks like you will run out of physical space between 2025 and 2026 if your case volume continues at the rate. So there needs to be a conversation of where are we going to grow as evidence continues to grow. Immediate corrective actions are outlined for the chief there. Within 30 days, you need to have a complete audit of the evidence files. Installation of badge control, some additional CCTV coverage, a dedicated budget for the evidence, and some replacement of some equipment, and a comprehensive firearm inventory and disposal project. Third is the command structure and organizational efficiency. The department's org chart, this is the bottom of page 3. The department's org chart has not been updated since 2013, and it no longer reflects what is the Moss Point Police Department. It is a much larger, it lists a series of captains and lieutenants and positions that simply the department does not have. It has not had for some time. And so with that, there's a administrative duty. And without having a deputy chief for the Moss Point Police Department, the chief of police bears direct oversight for every single division, including patrol, investigations, evidence, building maintenance, fleet maintenance, dispatch. It just goes on and on and on. And that structure is simply not sustainable and results in delayed decision-making, inconsistent supervision, and increased risk exposure. So jumping to that last paragraph, there's a saying within the military, within law enforcement, if you have two, you have one. If you have one, you have none. That is where that deputy chief comes in, because it provides that backup in the event that the chief is unavailable, or at least it provides that second tier. So the city should authorize the deputy chief's position, promote or hire 4 sergeants, appoint a CID sergeant, and assign an administrative lieutenant to oversee dispatch, records, building, and fleet maintenance. Weekly command staff briefings should be held by the chief immediately, enhancing communication, reinforcing accountability, and establishing consistent leadership expectations across divisions. Previously, when you go from the structure that was provided, you had the chief of police and you had sergeants. So if you think about a patrol officer starting at Moss Point, they really would only have 2 promotional opportunities within a 30-year career, sergeant and chief. So building in those other layers provides a true career path for the men and women of the Moss Point. Number 4 was the fiscal oversight and time and accountability. I did not conduct a formal audit of your time and attendance. I provided some recommendations here, whether through the city's HR department, state auditor's office, if that route wants to be taken on the audit of time and attendance. Number 5, page 5, number 5, policy. Policy was last revisited in November of 2021, but most policies have not been revisited since 2013. I will tell you that the Moss Point Police Department has a general framework that most municipal agencies have. It's very sound structure as far as policies are concerned. There are a few things that need to be addressed, that need to be updated. Use of force policy, pursuit policy, any of those high liability, high risk policies, you always want to make sure those stay up to date. There is some verbiage that was unnecessarily confusing, such as portable video management system or portable digital recording device. That should simply follow standard, which is body-worn camera. We all know what a body worn camera is. There's no reason to have a policy that has these very complex terminologies, and I don't know the reasoning behind labeling it that instead of a body worn camera. So short-term policy review teams should be composed with city leadership, city attorney, HR, and you got to get these policies up to date within about 6 months. So within all those 4 areas that I was asked to review, some other issues came up that I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of. Building maintenance and facilities. There's some evidence within the building of water intrusion, peeling paint, some stains, different leaks, things of that nature. But a clean, well-maintained work environment communicates organizational pride and professionalism. So we need to make sure we get some building maintenance done within that, because that, again, that's going to reflect how these men and women feel about where they work. And it also, in the event we did have another catastrophic storm or an event, we don't need the building failing when we need it most. Budget review and fiscal management. So I pulled the budget for 2024, expended as of May 31st, which is roughly 2/3 through the fiscal year, or 66%. They were on spending at about 62%. So that's on page 6 right there. The spending wasn't as much the issue as there were some categories that were grossly out of character. One category was 140% expended at 66% through the year. Probably the most glaring was policeman salaries year to date had only reached 45.62%. Vehicle maintenance had reached 96.55%. So that tells me, hey, we're understaffed. We're not expending our law enforcement funds. Having more years, you could probably justify either giving raises or hiring more FTEs. There needs to be, that number needs to be in line with where you are in the budget. And then the vehicle maintenance being at 96% expended through 66% of the year, you got a fleet issue right there. Your vehicles are starting to eat through, and they may have reached the point they've expended their service life. So budget reviews should be held weekly with command level participation. There should be a cost per vehicle analysis, and we need to determine whether or not keeping these cars is as cost effective as simply replacing the automobiles. Page 7, continuing with vehicles. Employee reports, again, I could not validate this through the amount of time I had, but employee reports, the city of Moss Point proper had not purchased a new patrol car in over 20 years, instead of relying on aging fleet, drug forfeiture funds to maintain the replacement. The vehicles that are in the department were 2007, 2012, aging Crown Vics, Chargers, early model pickups. There were a few vehicles that were acquired in 2021 and 25, so there was a limited effort. But again, there needs to be an established plan by the city of purchasing vehicles. So if you're going to have, 20 cars, we're going to buy 5 this year, 5 next year, 5 next year, and then have them on a rotating cycle. What happens is you see agencies all over the country, they'll buy the entire fleet one time. Problem is, 5 years later, you need to buy an entire fleet again, and the finances aren't there. So having a structured 3, 5, 10-year plan, we're going to replace a third of the fleet or an eighth of the fleet, whatever it is. But the city needs to have a structured plan on how we're going to move through to replace the fleet, because drug forfeiture funds or forfeiture funds in general aren't always a guarantee. Employee morale and community relations. Obviously, the Moss Point Police Department has been negatively affected by some resource limitations, some visible conditions of its equipment. There was a report of a patrol vehicle that had a bullet hole in the driver's door, which conveyed a troubling message both to the department personnel and as well as the community. When I asked about why it hadn't been repaired, it was, well, we didn't have enough cars, and it kind of went back in this back and forth. So I think the department has at a crossroads right now of adopting a modern branding. You guys are turning over anew. This is the Phoenix opportunity. This is the new Police Department, and show that renewal and that progress. I just learned actually this week that the Moss Point School District, they start their police officers at $49,509, $49,509 as a school district, and then the city is behind at $42,129. Now, that's a difficulty for recruiting when you've got a school district that's going to offer these men and women a take-home car, a 7 to 3, 7:30 to 4 schedule. They don't have call-outs. They're very rare. So there is a competitive market. There is an arms race for public safety, if you will. So there's going to have to be some focused effort on, hey, where are we going to put these finances, and how are we going to restructure these things? One of the things that stood out, after reviewing city council meetings, social media discourse, news coverage, there needs to be a focused effort by this board and by this council and by the city on building the relationship with stakeholders. I encourage all of you to do ride-alongs with the police department, officers within your wards. You guys walking hand in hand with the men and women of the Moss Point Police Department and showing that lockstep, showing that, hey, we're moving this thing together. There needs to be a firsthand understanding of everyone as to what police work is and what it isn't. And again, I think that transparency from your side as well as the police department side is going to do a lot for the relationship of the citizens of Moss Point with the police department. So, in conclusion, this is a pivotal point in the evolution of the Moss Point Police Department. The agency retains a foundation of professionalism, has limited personnel, years of attrition, aging infrastructure, outdated policies. It's weakened some internal consistency. But again, I think through discipline, top-down strategy by city leadership, accountability, and communication, there's good framework within this department. If you'll see on pages 8, 9, and 10, I laid out basically a 30-day, 90-day, and then 180-day. One of the things that was established on the bottom of page 9, bi-weekly meetings with the mayor. There needs to be established consistent, structured communication between the chiefs and the mayor's office to ensure that there's alignment in priorities, progress, and challenges. If the department's not able to fulfill a request by this board or this council, that communication needs to be taking place in real time. Also, if there's an unreasonable ask, the police department needs to be able to relate to this group in real time. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys for questions, concerns.
I first want to thank you for doing this. And a couple of questions. One is you mentioned you were limited by time. Do you think that the internal audits that you suggested will make up for that, of the things you weren't able to do, or do we need to take a deeper dive with you or someone from DPS to do an additional evaluation that may take more time?
Yeah, so I think you could do an autopsy of the division that I oversee. There's always going to be time permitted that you can get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and find more and more and more. I think what I've provided you is that extremely high level of, hey, these are the things that are glaring issues within the department that need to be fixed. If these are fixed, you're going to have more time, obviously, to see some other issues. You're always going to have, whether it's personnel issues, whether it's a policy that needs to be updated. We live in a profession of law enforcement that changes daily through case law and everything else. So I think, if anything, maybe a 6-month checkup. Like if you got a diagnosis from the doctor, come back in 6 months and see where we're at now with these items, then maybe a year checkup. But obviously, I've seen agencies spend a lot of money on assessments, and they're only worth if the product is implemented at the end of the day.
The other question is to do with the organizational structure. I really appreciate the recommendation that we need that. I would personally also like to see those opportunities for advancement within the structure. But of course, that takes funding to populate that new org chart. So all those positions have to be paid for. So in a limited budget, I don't know if this would be fair to ask you this, but I'm trying to be creative and think of how we could accomplish some of that with limited funds. Because we have the seizure funds that can be used for certain things like purchasing a few cars. One thing we haven't done that you noted is purchase cars, other than those few that we've done with the seizure funds. But for example, when I was growing up here, we never had a deputy chief, but the chief handled his business. And then he had someone he could depend on, the highest ranking officer, that he would delegate duties to.
So one thing I've advocated for is to do something like that rather than have a standalone position as deputy chief. Maybe that's a way we could kind of get, I call it kill two birds with one stone, where you've got someone who when needed, performs deputy chief duties, but also maybe on the street patrolling or in some other function. Are there various ways that this organizational structure can be created?
There are, and ultimately, I looked at a few different things, but it was clear to me that the way the last chief was being asked, it was not sustainable. He had worked night shift to cover patrol. He was, doing vehicle maintenance outside on a couple of cars. He was fixing some things on the building. It was stretched extremely thin. And, had something happened, had he had a medical incident or had he gotten hurt on the job, one of the things about when you have your chief all the way out there answering calls for service, there's nobody else to provide that administrative support. Who makes those statements if the chief's involved in that incident? Who oversees the department? The chief's the one involved in that incident. So oftentimes it's that second tier or that third tier that provides that layer of protection, if you will, to allow the administrator to truly be the administrator. One of the things I was reading this weekend, you can't coach the game and play the game at the same time. It's kind of that same structure, right? Having that, it doesn't have to necessarily be a lieutenant or a deputy chief with this perfect structure. This is the goal. This would be the hey, this is our 5-year plan. We want to. Funding is an issue. But yeah, you're right on. I think the biggest thing, you've got to have some separation of duties when it comes to the criminal investigation. You cannot ask somebody to approve the reports and have their own cases that they're working and be asked to go testify. You're asking a lot of that individual. They need to be a CID supervisor, or they need to be a line detective. Those reports need to roll through the deputy chief or the chief. So you could probably do a combination.
So it does sound like our biggest challenge is simply to find the funding and prioritize that funding that would support the improvements we need to make.
And there may be just things of what are we doing today that we don't need to be doing. A lot of police departments over the years have taken on tasks that really, at the bottom line, are not public safety tasks. We joke about whether it's the fire department getting the cat out of the tree or what, but sometimes, if it's a community service program or it's going to calls for service, there may be some things that we need to take a holistic look at and say, hey, do we need this animal control component within the department, or do we need these funds to getting the department right? And so there just may be a hard look of what are some areas that we need to cut, and what are some areas that we need to bolster.
Thank you again.
What you think?
No, I just like what you talked about community engagement and morale. Page 10, on page 9, page 10. I like that. I think police officer or chief job will be much easier if you get out and communicate in the community and develop, just talking and seeing that the officers, they respect you more, and you probably gonna have to give them some respect too. But I like that. Once they get to know you, you in the community, you building the morale up, and that's, well, hey, here go Officer so-and-so. We know him. He said, hey guys, y'all need to cool it out a little bit. I believe but I like that community engagement. Well, that means a lot. Means a lot.
And watching the city council meetings from particularly the homecoming event and some of those, going into next year, there needs to be a lot of collaboration and a lot of conversation and the community involved. The foundation of policing is the Sir Robert Peel. Police are the people are the police. And these men and women are no different wearing polyester in the badge. That we just need to make sure that we get to where people do, to your point, hey, that's Josh. That's Officer Broman. And I can say, hey, sir, how's it going today? We can have those conversations. But, as we moved along, the windows have gotten tinted, the windows have gone up, law enforcement's gotten its way, but we've got to get back to some of those things and say, just, hey, Alderman Ward 3, you're gonna ride with Officer Jane Doe, John Doe. You guys park the car at the end of the block, walk the street on a Saturday morning for an hour, 2 hours. And you just get out there and just physically walk the street and be with the people. Averaging about 1,700 calls for service a month. There is room within the Moss Point Police Department's day to do some community relations and to do some building and to heal some of these, these relationships and mend some of these relationships.
Right. I like that. Thank you, sir.
So,
Investor,
No, I don't have anything.
Alderman Bradford.
Is that section there on page 4 about the deputy chief?
yes, sir.
Did you recommend a time frame that we should reinstate? We had a deputy chief up until a few months ago. That we need to reinstate that.
Yes, so I mean, and so I can't see his name played over there. My recommendation was within 45 days. If the money's not there, the money's not there. That's gonna be the last paragraph, line 3. If the money's not there, the money's not there. These are command structures that are common within a paramilitary organization, which law enforcement is to have, your chief, your deputy chief, and to provide those layers of structure. You're talking about a rebuild policy alone, evidence alone, CID alone. These are very large things that are going to need to be corrected, and to put all that on one individual, I think is going to be a heavy lift, especially as they're trying to build the team. So that was the recommendation. Again, you may have somebody that's a sergeant that steps into that role and just maybe doesn't have the title of deputy chief, but you really need to have somebody right there with the chief to help, because this is a pretty large task.
So you can have somebody with a different title. They don't have to be deputy chief. It can be, but we need to know who's in charge when the chief is not available.
Yeah, like I said, you have 2, you have 1, you have 1, you have none. Chief is involved in a critical incident, or the chief has a medical emergency, or the chief has a family emergency, and they're out. This department right now needs to make sure they have continuity of operation. They need to make sure that they have somebody and a series of somebodies in charge in the event that something takes place. Life happens, tragedies happen, and we just want to make sure that the city doesn't get headed down the right path, and then all of a sudden we're right back to square one, and hey, we got to start over again.
So you didn't find that in your assessment?
Say that one more time.
So you didn't find that over there in your assessment? You didn't find that structure?
No, you had the chief, then you had patrol sergeants, and that's a pretty substantial leadership vacuum within an agency of 28 or 30 people. Typically, you will have at least a mid-level manager of some kind within there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just mentioned that the way we got to that situation, the chief was trying to find resources to give his men and women an increase. And one way he saw to do that was to limit, the deputy chief had moved on to another job. And when that position was vacant, then he decided that he could just leave that vacant and use those funds to give his staff a raise. That's how that vacancies got vacant. So just have to work our way back out of that situation.
And you may want to look at similar cities in size, whether it's, Wiggins, Brandon. You may want to look around the state and find other departments. I mean, believe it or not, with 28 to 30 people, it's on the larger side when it comes to the police department. There seems to be the bulk of Mississippi departments were within that 20 to 25 range. Very few start getting up into that 90 and 100 and 200 people. So there's a lot of very similar cities that are in your guys' boat. Survey them, see where they're at, see the structure that they're running that works for you. This structure here that was provided, again, I gave you guys the desired product. This is what, if we had the money, we had the time, we had the energy, we had everything we needed, we could just snap our fingers and make it happen. It's deputy chief, admin assistant, and I'll provide this, just a visual to you guys. I think you had it already. But this is
Okay, I would, Joel, thank you so much again. I would, before you leave, would like for our interim chief to come up just so you can hear.
Sir.
We had a preliminary meeting prior to this meeting, a couple weeks ago, and, to go over his report, and the interim chief was there. And little did I know that he went over and hit the ground trying to correct some of these issues. So interim chief, you could just tell us what you've done to address some of these issues already?
Alderman Wilson, we've also on the call.
Okay. Excuse me, before you do that, chief, Alderman Wilson and Dubose, do y'all have any questions for, State Director Broman? Alderman Dubose?
Well, okay, yes, sir. Really, I was dealing with the span of control side. I guess because, I come from a former fire department background where I guess the only way we could ever be promoted was laterally, not so much vertically. Um, and just given responsibilities and just saying that you have work experience in this area, the incentives of trying to that we're supposedly budgetly strapped on particular areas, and the creative ways of trying to finance through bonuses or through eliminating positions to give some policemen uh, raises. I'm just wondering, I guess, how because we just usually use lieutenants in the name of sergeants uh, to deal, and I don't actually know the structure of how the police is ran, just the way it is. But I'm trying to get a good snapshot of how we're dealing with how we're gonna, I guess, motivate our people, and we're talking about giving you incentives to grow in a department, and trying to. Um, you said that there's only two ways. That's a sergeant, actual patrolman, a sergeant, and then there's the chief. And so with us, there was 4 different stations. I guess with the police department, there's only one particular station. Um, and I guess what I'm looking at is just trying to figure out how do we, uh, because it became very treacherous how we tried to get promoted vertically, and it didn't lend to good brotherhood spirits to me. And I'm trying to get to a final of this question, but um, I was hearing Mr. Leonard, and he trying to get some understanding, and I'm on a call, so it's difficult for me to hear the full context, but just how important that is. What was the relevance of that? Because we are in a small town, and I don't know how big of the span of control and those things are important, because I do know things do break down. But then we had merit systems, and then we also had years of service who fell into those areas of who would then take the leadership position, as far as the who was in charge when the chief was out. So then we had areas in which we took education to try to put ourselves in at least the knowledge position of saying, we had the requisite knowledge to do this job. So we may not be getting paid for it, but we had other incentives to say that, we were trained. If that ever became an issue, if he some kind of way just left the scene, we had somebody right there to fall in place. So without me being any more wordy than I am, I'm just trying to figure out the relevance of that position. Just on the levels, if you get me, just on the levels of how important is it for as the structure of the ranking and how these successions come in place.
The most important thing is sergeants The sergeant position is the most important position in a police department. And I say that because that is your frontline supervisor at 2 o'clock in the morning when there's a critical incident. And if your sergeant is being asked to also be a patrolman, it's very difficult for them to provide supervision, to provide that oversight, to provide the leadership that is needed on a scene. And that's what I was able to find time and time again was everyone was being asked to do everything. And through that, nothing was really able to be accomplished. And so you need to have some dedicated supervisors who are able to make those critical decisions in those critical moments and not be burdened with, I've got to go take this paper call over here, I've got to do this. You can assist the officers, and 1,700 calls for service is not a lot. But they need to be able to approve these reports, reject these reports, ensure the evidence is filed correctly, ensure policies are filed, ensure HR policies are filed. There's a lot more that comes into that frontline level of supervision. And so it's really just ensuring those 6 sergeants, those 4 patrol sergeants, they're patrol sergeants. That CID sergeant is a CID sergeant. And then you need to have one person, I don't care where it is, beneath the chief, that is providing that administrative support, whether it's operational planning for homecoming, whether it's planning for a storm, whether it's planning for budget season. There needs to be that left hand to the right.
Here's the other one, here's the other.
I just want to give you, say thank you for taking the time out, conducting this assessment. I appreciate you, man. We appreciate you here in the city of Detroit. Thank you.
Okay.
Chief.
First of all, I appreciate the opportunity. You know, it's always good to get evaluations on things to see progress, where you need to go. Man, I like the evaluation said that most point have the foundation of a great police department. And I think what we're talking about is a long-term goal over here that needs to occur in most. But right now, we have a good foundation. Policies that I've been reviewing pretty good. Need to change a little here and there to be updated. We have reached out to many other departments and get copies of their policies. We call everybody else. Some of the things that we've been doing, you never know when you might lose an officer, you might gain it. So right now, we've been working to hire new officers. We've been personally going out, trying to get officers to come in more. We want those who are certified, which we don't have to spend a lot of resources on to get them trained. But also we want those that don't have law enforcement experience for the future to build the department up. And so my hat goes off to the guys that are still here because we've been protecting the city with the aid of the sheriff department pretty good. I'm doing an evaluation on how much the sheriff department has been helping us. But our officers that are still here have really been taking care of the city, working double shift, working overtime to make sure that our city is safe. Just had a meeting with the DA, warned CIB. They assured me we'd send out a meeting where they're coming with her team to evaluate all our cases, because what happened, we were left with one detective, and the more severe case came up. The case that wasn't so severe, we put to the side, so we accumulated our cases. And so we met with them, and they're coming over in the next week or so, all day to sit down and try to evaluate all the cases, because some of them are going to be outdated that the prosecutor says she's not going to even deal with. So we're working on that. In evaluation, evidence was operating without the camera. The very next day after we came, we ordered the cameras on the way. Another thing that we're doing, we're getting ready to move her into another office, because right now her office currently is in the evidence. So we're going to move her to another office. Create that room strictly for evidence will give us more space than we have right now. Also in the evaluation, we need to secure the evidence room better. So we're getting ready to change out the door that you'll be able to swipe it over to go in. And so that's gonna pretty much rectify the security issue. We're currently now, along with the evidence check, start getting rid of some old evidence that's been sitting in the locker for a long time. We just got rid of over 200 some items that was disposed of. We have in the evaluation approximately 1,500 guns that were confiscated. We're getting ready to destroy those guns. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so. And so we're working to make sure that we have a big shed out there that hosts a lot of bicycles and stuff. The process is you can put it in for 120 days. And so that's been going on almost a month. And so hopefully we'll be able to get rid of all those, that evidence as well. The morale, I mean, the morale is something that it really doesn't matter if you're a police department, where we are right now. Police department, policing has a tendency of boosting, the morale goes up and down. So one of the things that we've seen since we've been there is that we have to try to, first of all, help our police officers develop themselves, which we bring in more training. We have partnership with HR, get ready to offer more training to officers to make them feel more confident in what they're doing. They talk about the bullet hole that was in the car. I mean, that was an easy fix. I don't know why it wasn't done previously. After we learned about it, we put it in the shop the next day. We ran the car. So we're working in that process. Also, we noticed that we have cars. They were sitting back there with minor deficiencies. So we have put 9 cars back in operation. That's by changing the oil belts, air conditioning, pressure, putting new tires on, and putting stress on. And so we got 9 cars right now that is ready to go out in operation with our costs. And so when we have these 4 or 5 officers just started, they'll be able to go out in we restripe some because we want to present an image of progress. We want that when we show on the scene, people see multiple police cars, excited about it, say that's a nice looking show car. And so we've done that. 2 in the shop right now that we're trying to do. We even plan to fix some of the old convicts to turn them into like really service type program, which will free up police officers that I don't be. I want to create a community service group where we can hire young men and women from age 18 to 20. Hopefully, they'll come to work and then they will become police officers here in Mosswood. And so I know for police department has that unit that's been working out tremendously good. Community involvement, which is my pet peeve. I believe in community police. I believe that's the way to truly make a city safe, is involve the people. And we have been doing that since we've been in the position. Just the other day, we was out, Trumpets and 3, set up a police display, gave out over 300 chili cheese dogs. Tremendous opportunity to talk about what we're trying to do here in the city. We're getting ready to participate in the veterans thing tomorrow. November 20, we're going down to put forward the city. We created a system with the local spiritual leaders that we begin to have each and every month to talk about things that are going on in the community, to ask them to help us spread the message of the police department, because we want everybody in the city to police themselves. That's all of it. And as I said, you can put police on every corner in this city. But you got to teach the people to police themselves. Enjoy the people police themselves. One of the things that we've done with the court system, I'm excited about, is that we have given our citizens an opportunity to fix things that they get cited for. It's going to be a big, tremendous help. Like if you go and you get stopped for an expired tag, you get stopped for no tag light or something that can be fixed. We'll talk to the judge who agreed that if they come in within a certain time, they can show that they got to fix it, which is going to help. Bill morale is going to help bridge the gap between police and people. So we're excited about that. The other thing we're going to get ready to do is the morale of the people and the police, is that we're going to make sure police officers that make contact, not just on a call. We want them getting out at the churches. We want them to contact the people and just find out what would they like a police department to look like. Most of the people that I've talked to really say a police department that cares for the people, that will listen, be transparent. I think we're on the road to having a successful police department. Now, we need that structure, but that's a long-term. Knew when commission that it was going to be different. The process of having a good police department is a very simple concept, but it takes some work. It takes some work. And so what we've established is we have 2 sergeants right now that we actually got them doing some supervisor position. You know, they wasn't doing it at first, they were working, so it took a little pressure off me. When we have some of that information, we go through those 2 sergeants. That is sufficient right now because of how many police officers we got, but long term, we will need to develop a structure that will compensate. Like what you all did about getting rid of the deputy chief because trying to put more money in the police officer department, and ultimately that's the goal. That like this police, do you want more money in your pocket or do you want rank? Because from where I'm from, they said rank never paid a bill. It's money got a pocket. So what we're trying to do is to make sure we allow them to work overtime, make sure that when they do things off duties, that the clinical and the business that want to hire them, that they take those jobs and make that extra money. But we do need the structure. But right now, we need to, we're in a unique position that we're rebuilding. That's all we think about. And we're rebuilding this department with younger police officers. Most of them that got probably, I think one son of them might have most time. But the one of him have 8 years or less. And so we're building the department from the grounds up. And so this is going to give us an opportunity to get these guys that stay in the city more trained, to get them more vetted, to knowledge of what they're supposed to do. And as we build, I told the 2 sergeants, we don't build this department on you. Because so I said, sergeants are the most important position. And so we're going to build from that. We have 2 right now that are doing an outstanding job. They are communicating with me, communicating with the mayor. He knows what is going on in the city. He gets a report all the time. We're constantly doing that. If you all want that same, I think we can do it as well because we set it up. I want to say, I appreciate these evaluations. Wouldn't be, we're trying our best to correct it. I think we've done a lot since we've been here. I'm very hopeful. Whoever stands, whoever you are, to be the permanent chief, they have a good foundation here to move.
Yeah. That was it, Chief. I wanted you to let the board know what you've done just to address some of the issues. We do appreciate what you're doing, and Joshua can't thank you enough for coming. Members, I asked for it in order to give a new interim chief a roadmap and you don't have to come in and kind of wonder. Now he knows what we need to do to really get the department up and going, so that was the purpose of it. Thank you so much. If there are other questions, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This will be put on our website and our Facebook post so that people who want to see it, they can be able to see it. Thank you, Josh.
Let's go, man.